with Momentum, the big fella. How are you?
How are you, bro? What's happening?
How you doing? Happy Sunday. How's your weekend been?
Yeah, my man. Yeah, been good, man. Just finished dinner, actually.
Big feed, big feed.
Not bad for Sunday.
Yeah, good. Mate, we'll jump in. I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit today.
Yeah.
Super interesting story, which those that are on the Momentum page or maybe mine may not have heard, so I really want to go into that. And also talk about all things mental health, meditation, the new business, which just turned 1. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And everything in between. So I'll start with the mental health. So you position yourself as a mental health advocate, which is amazing and much necessary. How'd you end up there, or what got you to become a mental health advocate?
I think through personal experience, really. So back in 2014, I had a pretty severe car accident, and as a result, the circumstances led to a period of incarceration, and I actually had a lot of time in there where I was, given the opportunity to do a lot of inner work. In that time, I guess I got to reassess a lot of, my values and where I saw my life going in the direction of it. But not only that, it kind of exposed me to a world that not many people are, in terms of that system there and how many people are suffering deeply from mental health issues. So I guess with all of that combined, and the fact of, mate, I basically looked at, sorry, it's cut out for a sec.
You're right.
So I'm back. Okay. So yeah, it basically made me, as I said, reassess my own values, and I guess through that personal and direct experience, and also suffering myself, being able to bring myself out of, state of deep kind of depression. And I also was, going through a lot of dealing with anxiety and mental health issues at that time. So I guess, through all of that and being able to, in my opinion, I naturally did it through organically, searching within for the answers. So just drawing everything out and just looking within, as to, getting some kind of guidance into that topic there, that field of mental health. So I guess I filtered out a lot of, trauma, a lot of, suppressed emotions that I'd stored deep, in the body, and also for many years through, I guess situations that I've encountered during my life. So I guess in that environment, there was nowhere else to turn. The only way was inward, and it just allowed me to completely break down the barriers.
Yeah.
And from all of this, I came out of it a different person, and I came out stronger. My mind was so much stronger, and I've just been, I guess, on this kind of crusade ever since, to reach other people, through my own experiences, and, help them where I can. I can't help them on everything, but there are a lot of things, through my personal direct experiences that I can help people with. And, from all of this, I've got further into meditation, breath work, just areas of mental health in general. And yeah, just being able to apply it all under one banner, and, and positively change people's lives. So yeah.
There's a lot in that. So
Yeah.
what, for those that don't know, you obviously mentioned it there in a roundabout way. So I don't know how you kind of, which I'm going to ask you in a sec, how you feel about the whole situation now, and how that's looked over a 7-year period. But what essentially happened, for those that didn't jump on, and correct me where I go wrong with the story, is essentially you had a car accident, hit a bunch of cyclists, one died, and
No,
then
no
you
one.
spent no one died, but you spent
No.
18 months behind bars.
Yeah.
All right, so
So yeah, and
you
look,
go.
leading up to it all, you know, I guess like I was living a completely different life to the you know, the life I live now, but you know, I found myself, you know, really living in a toxic environment, and I, you know, was suffering from, you know, like depression, you know, like leading from when my footy career was taken away from this kind of stuff. It all kind of snowballed, and
Mm,
eventually it just broke. And I was having sleeping problems, and I was getting tests done for sleep apnea. And one day I just, you know, driving into work and fell asleep at the wheel. Next minute, crash into 6 cyclists and find myself incarcerated. So, yeah, that's a bit of the story behind it and how I got to that point. But you know, like the way I view it, you know, is I can't look at everything that's happened and say that, you know, it was a mistake or it was I regret it, because
mm,
you know, as much as I am remorseful for, you know, there is that element of forgiveness that we've kind of, you know, I guess spoken of, and you know, for me that's enough. But just with that in itself, you know, the few people that were affected in that way, it's allowed me to set a platform to help the many people that I'm helping now. So with everything, you know, it's there's always underlying reasons, I believe, why things happen. And yeah, I guess, you know, to say that, you know, 3 years ago I'm sitting in a jail cell staring at a you know, the concrete wall, is to where what I'm leading now. It's an amazing transformation. So yeah, and you know, like it's still growing. And you know, today we just had a 24-hour breathing room meditation, you know, group that we ran through Lifeline. And mate, honestly, the response has been amazing. You know, with mental health at the moment, with what's happening with COVID, suicide attempts have gone up 5 times. The calls to Lifeline have gone up 30%. So this whole situation, this whole pandemic, has sent it into a complete spiral. And you know, to launch this today was an amazing experience to be a part of. And you know, we're all of us at Triple M are so passionate about obviously helping people, but it's a lot more. You know, it's a lot more than just creating awareness for suicide prevention. It's about building a support network, and it's about building communities. So you know, everything we do, it's you know, non for profit. It's very much, you know, the goodness of that. We're giving our time to people that, you know, and a lot of us have had experiences that have given us that opportunity to actually do what we're doing now. So
yeah,
yeah, all in all, you know, yeah, it's been a hard, you know, transition to get through some of the stages with, you know, that I've had to get myself through. But you know, the end result now, I can see how much positivity we're taking away from it all.
yeah, mate. I love, again. There's so much in that. I love where you're at, but I also like. I think one of the big things, you know, and I'm sure you're more well versed on it now, having experienced what you have, is like not to judge anyone for anything. And I don't know how you feel navigating, you know, what you've been through. I know some of the things that I've been through, which I haven't even really made public to a lot of people.
Mm.
The first time I shared that story, there's a whole bunch of like guilt and shame and judgment of self when I shared that story. And I remember my throat really kind of drying up when I did a presentation on it in Melbourne. But I really liked the way you use the word forgiveness. So I'm interested in what that looked like, you know, over the last 3 years, 4 years, while you were spending time, you know, behind. But like, is that, I assume you're talking about forgiveness of self. Like, how does that
Yeah.
process look over that last 3 or 4 year period?
Yeah, I mean, look, of course, it's hard to sometimes bring yourself to that moment of, being able to forgive yourself, especially when it's affected other people as well. So, like for
Mm.
example, when I was in prison, my father passed away, and that was a heavy burden for me to carry because obviously there was a lot of this, there was a lot of stress associated um, with the accident, and obviously with being incarcerated, and on the family in general. So that there, and then not being able to be with family at that time period, um, was incredibly hard for me. So it took me like a long time, and a process to build that forgiveness up. But I feel like the more and more I'm giving out to people, the more I'm using my story as a platform to help others. I mean, I'm not wasting the opportunity here. Like everything that's happened, I'm now, I've transitioned through it all, and I've got the story to tell. So I mean, like, I could go and work in the mines, so I can do something completely off key, um, but or like go back into my old world of online sports book bookmaking. But for me, I've lost passion with it all, and now I'm just really passionate about the mental health side, helping people. And a big part of why Liqueur, my business, was created was exactly that. People, like a physical structure where people can come and look after their health, overall well-being. So, but yeah, back to your question, just based on forgiveness. I guess for me, it's become more and more, the byproduct of what I'm doing. So the more and more I see the positive results of what I'm creating, the more I'm forgiving myself for my past mistakes. So it's like layering the old with the new.
Yeah, mate, it's amazing. And again, you kind of mentioned it there, is that kind of silver lining of, yeah, obviously it's a fucking horrible situation and you wouldn't wish that upon anyone, but through all that pain that you went through, which sounds pretty full on, you've managed to find an amazing passion, which based on what you're saying, I think wasn't really clear or wasn't even there pre spending 18 months behind bars. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, look, and prior to this, prior to everything, like, and I'll be the first to admit this, like, I lived a very loose life, and
Mm,
there's just no element of discipline. And towards, like, even the beginning of me, re-entering society after all of this, I probably still wasn't completely fully healed. Like I'd done my time, but then again, it's in a different environment. So you get out and you kind of you're trying to reintegrate into society. So there's a part of an element of your old life there, and it took me a long time to really, actually, until probably close enough to this year to fully integrate that whole experience, and really get control, and form the positive lifestyle living that I needed to. I mean, there was a lot of kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back type of thing in
mm,
terms of fully committing to what I've been doing now. And I'm a firm believer of practicing what you preach. So I don't want to be that person that's telling, like, giving people advice on mental health and then going having 12 beers at at the pub on the weekend type of thing. It's completely contradictory. I'm not saying you need to be perfect on that level, but the more, it's about over time, since I've reintegrated back into it, it's been a process. But very much so, like, the key thing, in prison, that, and even prior to it, was I just never played the victim card. Like, as much as the whole scheme of the accident was exactly it, an accident, there were still people that were hurt. I still caused an accident, and it was the snowball events leading up to it as well that that led to it. So I'm very much all about culpability to, you know, what's happened and taking complete responsibility for it. So I think, you know, just being honest with yourself is that key ingredient, you know, just always, you know, being honest with yourself, how you're feeling, your emotions and everything, getting really in tuned inside.
What were you mentioned mental health a couple of times now. What were the thoughts like when you were in prison, knowing, I assume you knew your 18-month sentence at the start and nothing kind of moved, but what was your thoughts? Is it like, do I just get through the day? Is it, you know, grieving and beating yourself up over what you did and spending time? Like, what was the daily kind of thought process, and did it move over the 18 months?
Like the daily, I guess, the first 9 months was difficult only because you're still, like, I appealed my case, so I was under the precedent that, you know, I could potentially get out earlier. So you kind of I was still in there thinking, you know, potentially this is too harsh of a sentence and I may get time reduced. So I went through that whole belief that I wasn't going to do that full period. So, you know, I guess like when that didn't come back in my favor, it was like, oh crap, I'm restarting the whole thing again, you know? So after that 9 months, I had another 9 months to do. But yeah, I guess like it's at the start, it's very, very, you're exposed to this new environment, you know, you're around some serious people and yeah, like it's intimidating. So I guess not only, like, you try and put everything else that's happened behind you. So for instance, the accident, why you're here and all of this, it's all about survival now. It's not about why you're there. I mean, you're going to have plenty of time to reflect on this. But initially, those initial stages, it's just, you know, you're in that survival mode and, you know, it's very high stress level. And, you know, was exposed to some extreme violence, you know, saw some really heavy stuff, you know, especially in Remand. Yeah, so I guess like, you know, the more and more you get sort of ingrained into it, the more you get familiarized with people and they know you, the easier it becomes, the more you settle into it. But yeah, look, for the most part, you're taking it day by day. It's not like you can't look too far ahead. But you know, there were some weeks that went really, you know, like that some weeks went quick, some went slow. Like you just couldn't look too far ahead, like from day to day.
Yeah. So the stress and the mental challenges weren't all about fuck what I've done, but the real time stresses have actually been in there of other inmates and like some of the heavy shit that goes on. Like I didn't even really consider, obviously I didn't really kind of consider that part, but I thought you'd just be stuck in, you know, what you've done and potentially even the isolation, which, you know, really stresses people out, being with their own thoughts as well. But it was actually
like, I guess when I had time on reflection, so like when I would do my meditation practice in there, that's the time when I would bring up, okay, you know, and it wasn't about dwelling on the past. It was more about looking at your future. So like I would sit there a lot and look at visualization. I look at, you know, setting intentions and, you know, trying to figure out, all right, look, this is the position you're in. Let's not play the victim. Let's just keep, you know, let's figure out what you want to do. Really, let's take this time now to filter out what you need and to really get clear by bringing stillness into the body. Now, everything else, when I'm out of the meditation, is all about the survival of it. So it's just, you know, it's looking at, as I said, when I was like in Remand, it was probably a lot more heightened stress because you're in there with the murderers, the rape, you're in there with everyone, man. You're just chucked into, you know, an environment that you get as many heavies as you know, as you could imagine, or the lowest people in society, really. So in that time, you know, yeah, you're not focusing too much on why you're there, but you know how to survive it. And yeah, as far as the inner reflection, that came through meditation and all about self-improvement, self-development, you know, all about, you know, instilling that belief that, you know, this will come to an end, and you know, where are you going to be after this? You know, who do you want to become? You know, so yeah, and I think that's what kind of, and just keeping a positive attitude. Like, I'd have people visit, I'd have letters written, and always just, no matter what, would just make sure that it's always coming across as positive as I can be, you know, and that really did carry on. So you can imagine just 18 months just practicing positivity and gratitude and appreciation of the little things, how much more appreciation you're going to have when you actually get back out into the real world. And, you know, from that environment that you've been in, it's like, it's a game changer, you know, like I don't sweat the little things anymore. It's just little things don't bother me, and I can always try and see the bigger picture.
Yeah. How do you go talking about it? I know with my pretty solid mishap, I really struggled for a good 15 months to talk about it, but it's almost as soon as I started talking openly about it, it's like the shackles are off and you're good to go. How's the transition between maybe that first 6 months out of prison and how you associated with that to, you know, 3-4 years on now, and how you navigate that if it's brought up?
I felt like at the start, you know, you're like, my case was very well known. It was drawn out in the media. So I was able to kind of address it. And, you know, while I was in there and when I got out, so it's like everyone kind of knew my story, but to a point. So they hear one side, you know, they hear about the media reports. I never really openly spoke out to the media about it. Obviously, for the circumstances, I didn't want to jeopardize anything in the case. And then basically got sentenced, so wasn't able to talk after. But I guess the biggest transformation for me was when I opened up, and this was maybe 3 months or maybe 4 months into opening the cure, was now, you know, I started to generate, you know, a lot more interest in the public eye. You know, my social media was blowing up, and I saw and heard little things, little whispers about, you know, my situation, you know, or just people not really knowing my side of what happened. So I did a podcast and I left it all out there. I spoke about everything. And, you know, that was such a transformational time because I had so much love from people, you know, just thank you for opening up. It really affected people. I had people ringing me saying, you know, I've got, you know, things that I haven't been able to talk about. You know, I had one guy had a similar circumstance that, you know, serious accident in his car and, you know, just really in a bad place with it all. So to see the rewards from, you know, opening up, not only did it make me feel better, but just to see what it did for other people was amazing. That was the biggest takeaway for me, you know, and everything, the flow on from all of that has been incredible. So now that, you know, I'm not ashamed to talk about it, I've done seminars where I speak about it. I've done, you know, workshop, whatever. And the story is a part of me now. Like, there is no Tommy Kerr without prison. And I absolutely now just honor it. Like, it's a place I never want to go back to, but it's a place I'm definitely not ashamed to talk about.
Mate, I love that. Like, you know, one of the big things for me, I think, is if we can help people normalize their experience or their struggles or their shame, then that's a really big thing. And, you know, someone like yourself being a leader, leaders kind of have to go first. And for you to, you know, find a level of peace with what's happened and, you know, talk about something that, you know, could have been challenging. I guess the more you talk about it, the less challenging it is. It's especially that first time you really talk about the kind of intricate details that it can really feel quite nerve-wracking. But to find peace and freedom in talking about that thing that you once probably had shame, judgment, and guilt around is amazing for anyone else who's experienced any kind of, history and can feel at peace with it, hopefully.
Man, 100%. And look, I think this is the biggest misconception, and I really do believe that there are a lot of people that are they're just too ashamed to talk. And like, there's living proof that, the benefit of owning it, just own it, yeah, you might have fucked up, but, if you're willing to use it and transform it to help others, use it as a transmutation from a negative situation into a positive, and to see the effects it can have on people, it is the most empowering thing, and, a lot of people will respect you more for it. If you're trying to hide your past, if you're trying to, beat around the bush and say, in a little bit of denial, or, play the victim, or, not being completely honest, it'll come back to bite you. But not only that, it's not being authentic. The minute you start being authentic about it all, authenticity is, it will take you to a different stratosphere, and there's so much success can come off the back of it.
Yeah, mate, totally get it. And it's from my own experience anyway, through your own shame, guilt, judgment, it's easy to leave little bits out of the story, but you just got to fucking step into that whole story. And that's through my own personal experience, through the shame of my own fuck ups. Every now and then I just want to kind of leave little bits of the story out, but you're spot on. You got to fucking own it all, which has its challenges.
There's a guy named Wes Watson, right? And this guy is a fucking badass from the States. He's been in the hardest jails. He's literally he's lived this life, but he has owned everything he's done, and he's now one of the best transformational coaches on the planet. And this guy is, he's doing seminars for 100K a pop, man. But all because he kind of owned his story. He was willing to admit, no matter how, how much it would have, affected his standing or his social status with some people. A lot of people judge him for what he's done, but he just owned it. And now, he's got so much success with the back of it, but he's actually transforming people's lives, at the same time. So, as I said, I bring back to that word authenticity. Someone just wrote to me something about triggers. Where was it?
He said it a couple of times, I think. Sorry,
hot property.
Sorry.
To deal with triggers. Yeah, with triggers. Okay, I guess the easiest way to deal with it is to know your triggers, obviously. But I always use breath work, and even if it's just one breath, and I've said this heaps, it's so simple. It's the most simplest thing we can do is take one deep breath. It just disconnects you from a thinking state to a feeling state. Okay, so whatever the triggers may be, just understand that one breath can completely separate you from how you feel about something. I guess the other thing with triggers, for me personally, I know now what the triggers are, and I don't drink a lot anymore, and I don't party as much anymore. And I guess if these are the things that have the runs on the board, from my perspective of what's kind of led me to a downward spiral, they're the triggers. They are the triggers, So when I've got a clear mind, a clear conscience, and I'm making the most positive choices, most conscious choices, I'm finding I don't get triggered, and I guess, and it's who you associate with as well. It's, man, I used to run with bad crowds back in the day and everything, and a lot of triggers would pop off, not literal triggers, but to a certain point, you know, like it's very much just, you know, being, you know, taking control, you know, discipline is key. You like, you know who you should be associating with, and obviously making the right conscious choices.
I think the thing as well, which is unfortunate often, is that we need to bottom out to make that change, which is a bit stressful sometimes, but
Yeah.
sometimes you really got to get fucking like absolutely handed it to you by life to really make that change. And it seems that kind of way for you, that you had to really hit the rock bottom before you started to head into a very different direction and a different crowd that you're messing with now.
Mate, 100%. And, you know, I think, especially like during my 20s and stuff, man, like playing, you know, training full-time rugby league squads and stuff like that, man, like you kind of think you're invincible. There's a lot of ego, you know, so it gets to a point where, mate, like I made some really shit choices. As I said, someone just wrote, mirrors, do you have a snow jacket on? I can't. No, it's Russell Crowe's actually. But yeah, like to that point, you know, like I was very egotistical, egocentric, and all of this shit that happened in my life just put me on a different, it just trajected me on a different path, man. And again, you know, I bring it back to, you know, you could go and do a 6-year degree, you know, but and read from as many books, textbooks as you want. But a lot of the times, people that have had life experience can give you so much more. You know, people that have walked through and lived through situations, there's something really powerful, you know, that can be displayed there.
Yeah, mate, one of the things, I've only known you for a short period, but one of the things I love, and you keep growing on me, which is a nice little man crush type thing that's going on, is just how you own it. You talk about your ego. There's just no hiding, and I think you can kind of sense when someone's hiding behind something, and you're just so transparent in it. And I think that's why you appear, anyway, for the short period of time that I've known you, a really kind of approachable guy and a likable person, just because, fucked up, did my time, literally. And you know, you own every part of your story. And as good as any part of your story is the fact that you've really kind of turned it around and are starting to make an impact in a really healthy way. So, it's super admirable the way that you're going about things, just as an outsider watching. And I can only assume that's part of why people love you as well. So, mate, there's a number of things I want to talk on, but the first one is Vipassana, because we've both done it. And for those that haven't done it, do you want to give them a little bit of you did Blue Mountains as well, didn't you?
I did. So, I did the Blue Mountains retreat. And for those who don't know, it's a 10-day silent retreat. It is not for the faint-hearted. Like literally, you're meditating up to 10 hours a day. You know, minimal breaks, but so you're doing a lot of groundwork. You're doing a lot of inner work. It's a technique that uses bodily sensations. So you're basically scanning the body from head to toe, from the crown to the feet, just constantly. You start with a technique called Anapana, which is, you know, feeling the sensations just through the nose. Then you'll move to a Vipassana body sensation scan. So you're scanning the body, you're feeling into each sensation through each body part with a sensation. It could be anything. It could be, you know, tingling, pins and needles, could be pressure, cold or hot flushes, whatever it is. You kind of moving into each part of the body. And, you know, it's a practice that in Tibet and the monks and stuff have done for many years. So it's not a very, by any means, easy practice to apply, but it's such an effective one to really, you know, get yourself out of this state of fear. And and the fear might come from, you know, it's really much like just about taking yourself out of your comfort zone. So a lot of people have that negative self-talk about meditation and, you know, I can't sit there. There's like, I'm going to get back pain. And it's all about using an equanimous mind. So not judging anything that's going on as good or bad. It's about what's there and accepting what's there. And this is an effective way of, you know, beating cravings and addictions and actually healing the body for that sense, healing the mind, healing the body, strengthening the mind, strengthening the body. So yeah, it was such an empowering and effective practice for me to learn. I'd be lying if I said I've embodied it like fully since I've been out. It's a very demanding practice, but I've tried very hard to consciously be aware of, you know, at least a couple of times a week, falling back into the practice just to keep things moving with it. I don't want to completely fall away from it because I really feel like it takes many practice, many times of going to, you know, to sit through the 10-day Vipassana. And, you know, I kind of feel like the fifth day was the hardest for me. You know, just getting through day 5 and then knowing you've got 5. So you've done that 5, you know, we're back into, we just do that again. Let's repeat that 5, you know. And I'm actually like, I got to the 5th day and I was like questioning myself. I had a breakdown, man. Like, and not only that, like I was going down to like a quiet area and like just talking under my breath, because this is a silent retreat, guys. You're not allowed to speak at these retreats, and you can't make eye contact. So at one point, like I actually lost touch with what was happening and whether or not I could actually speak. So like I was like verbalizing little words just to make sure I could speak. They were very croaky. But yeah, it was such a powerful experience for me. And it was one that when I actually got out, I felt so confident. And this was like a week. I'll tell you the story. So I went in there a week before I opened the cure. And I actually needed to do this because I knew that I wouldn't get the time to do it, you know, after I started the business. So I told my business partners that I was just going to go there for 5 days. Little did I know that you had no contact with the outside world. So 5 days come, and this is the day I start having the kind of little breakdown. I'm like, I've got to call my partners. Anyway, the teacher says to me, look, you know, we can't have you talking to anyone. We can send a message out or a call. So I ended up ringing my brother and saying he's in here for another 5 days. Mate, after the 10 days, my phone was just blowing up, man. But I was so calm. I just like was reading every messages, and it was like pretty savage, some of them. But I was like so zenned out. I was such at peace within. You know, I eventually just replied to and the way I may have usually reacted would have been, you know, like getting on the back foot a little bit, but I was such at a state of peace that I was, you know, the way I reacted in that situation, the response I got was completely different. They were fully accepting. So, you know, a lot of the times we judge or we make assumptions about, you know, how a situation's going to unfold, but it's always about how we react to it. That will, you know, have the flow.
I'll tell you what, mate, that jacket's getting some airtime. I don't know what the fuck's going on with that jacket, but, mate, I like it. I don't know. You're getting heckled hard on it.
My girlfriend, Alicia, Danielle, Alicia on here it is. She bought it for me.
Yeah.
So she sent a little comment there, but yeah, the jacket's, it's where it's at. It's probably too hot to be wearing it now, but.
Mate, I like it. I like it. My, yeah, Vipassana for me was the toughest thing I ever have done. And I was meant to go back and do it in March, but because of COVID hit, I literally got cancelled the week before I was meant to go. But that first day, like I wore a watch, which helped me kind of hold some kind of control, and thinking I was like fucking deep in a state of bliss on morning 1. And I looked at my watch, just had a little look down, and I was 15 minutes in. I was like, this is going to be a fucking long day. And I went down, I know where you went on the walking trail. I walked down the trail and looked over the Blue Mountains, and I could see the other side where I'd done a 50K trail run. I was like, I would much fucking prefer to be there doing a 50K run than sitting here doing my little fucking meditation for 10 days. But you're right, in that stillness and that silence comes heaps of clarity, and you just get back in your body. And I know you've been talking about that a lot, especially for blokes who play the game shoulders and above, playing their head so much. To be in your body is really good. And you do that really well. And you obviously took me through a breathwork session a couple of weeks ago where I fucking felt some weird stuff going on. But talk us through your breathwork and even your meditation. I know we've got about 8 or 9 minutes, but I would love to talk about the benefits of those two things so that people got a bit of an understanding of what you're doing.
Yeah, so I was first introduced to the Wim Hof band, like honestly, years ago, but I never really took hold of it. Like I kind of, this was actually prior to prison as well. Wim came out here for a seminar. I was supposed to go, I missed it. But I was kind of following his stuff back then. Then it actually, I knew the practice. So when I had that time away, it's when I really started to get deep with it. And I literally kind of self-taught it. Like in terms of, I knew the practice, but I really went to deep levels with it. And I was to the point where some breath holds are going 4 minutes and like long, in some instances longer. I was passing out on a few occasions. But this was the most effective way that I was actually bringing trauma out. And then I had some real physiological reactions to it. And, you know, they talk about the breath work and how, you know, it drops you into that parasympathetic nervous system. And I guess, you know, there are a lot of benefits in terms of, you know, what it can do, you know, to the vagus nerve, as well as, you know, improving our vagal tone, reducing inflammation, you know, taking it away from the body. There's a lot of benefits, reducing stress levels, you know, bringing out trauma. All of these things are associated with breath work, even performance-based. But the most, you know, the thing that I found was, just the ability to bring things up. And a lot of times I was to the point where I was purging, or I was, you know, a lot of the time I wouldn't exactly scream because I'm in that environment. But, you know, silent screaming, or just, there was some times I might have like broke down a little bit, but it was just really about pushing through the barriers, breaking down the barriers. And that's where I really just did a lot of groundwork, a lot of inner work and the majority was breath work. I did, you know, some other practices, meditation practices. And to this day, I've learned Vedic, you know, Vipassana, different forms of breath work. But there's something about the Wim Hof method for me. I've done some rebirthing sessions as well, with sound healing. But yeah, for me, I kind of feel like that is my jam. And we did one the other day, and I saw you guys getting some crazy like bodily experiences happening from it. But man, like for me, it's it works on that level of performance as well as a meditative practice. And I incorporate, you know, the 3 pillars. So I incorporate the breath work, I incorporate the cold exposure, which is another, you know, really effective way of, you know, reducing that inflammation, but the endorphins, as well as it's that full dopamine hit, you know. And I do that like consistently, the cold showers every day, you know. But with the breath work, you know, it has that, you know, biochemical effect on the body. And, you know, really, you do feel energized. You feel oxygenated. Your blood is oxygenated. Like you can actually feel this. And it's important to really focus on nasal breathing. You know, the nasal breathing is really connected to the diaphragm as well. But there is so many more scientific studies coming out about nose breathing. To the point where, like, I know some facilitators that take their mouth at night. Literally, so they're not breathing out of their mouth. So, yeah, all in all, you know, for me, it's that, you know, incorporating those two things on a daily practice, going through some breath work and then ripping into a cold shower. And then at night, I'll, you know, usually do one or the other, a bit of Vedic or a bit of Vipassana, but it, you know, it's still that consistency, you know, like right now, like, and it's all about, you know, adapting to change. So, you know, I've been staying at my girls lately, and sometimes I miss a meditation session, or, you know, you might find yourself getting in home late, a bit later, and you don't, you know, comply with it. But, you know, I'll try and really build my mornings around the foundations of a routine. So building up the basis of that, winning that morning mentality, and, you know, I just find everything can flow on from there.
I'm just looking at the time because I think you get cut off after an hour, so I want to kind of make sure we don't get cut off.
Yeah.
But so you talk about healing and trauma, and
yep.
For those listening, I did a session with Tommy a couple of weeks ago, and I literally just felt this fucking like knife leave my back, which is great that someone stopped stabbing me in the back, which is perfect. But what is what's your healing or trauma look like for you in terms of releasing? Like what could people potentially experience in terms of releasing trauma? You know, obviously sadness and tears. Is there anything else that can kind of happen?
Memories is a big one. So,
yep.
like, people bring up memories, and, you know, I kind of feel like we can tap into areas in our mind, you know, subconscious mind, and we can bring up and relive traumatic experiences and memories. But when we bring them up, usually it's a positive thing because we can address it or we can deal with it. So this is how things are brought to this. They say, oh, you're bringing trauma up to the surface. It's usually through remembering something that's happened, and then being able to, okay, either forgive someone or ask for forgiveness, or even, you know, to the point where, you know, you kind of, you're asking, it might be an individual or whatever about, you know, the situation that happened. It might be a family member. So that there is a really powerful way of dealing with trauma, and getting, you know, getting those emotions up to the surface. But, you know, we do suppress a lot, and yeah, it usually just comes out in terms of a physical reaction. So it might be screaming, it might be yelling, it might be cold shivering or overheating. But these are all normal, natural responses. So, you know, you just best, when these things do happen, you know, you work through. You just keep going through it, you know. There's never a time where I ever have a sensation that comes, or a feeling that I'm like, it's too much to handle. I'm like, man, fucking get it out. You know, it's come up, work the fuck through it. And
yeah,
that's how it works. That's how it looks for me, you know. But other times, if it is a memory, then I can address it on another level. So, yeah.
Mate, that's good, and that's so important. I think blokes tend to be worse at that in terms of repressed and suppressed memories. But the problem with that is it's stored in your body. It's not going anywhere. So you might as well fucking find a way to deal with it, because it's just sitting there. There's a really good book, which I think you've mentioned it. I think you've read it. The Body Keeps the Score. And it talks about how your body is literally storing everything that you've repressed or suppressed or not dealt with. So while you think that it's, you know, it's in the past, it's not. It's just it's literally been carried with you in your body. So worth 100%. Checking out if you want the science around where and how it's been stored.
Yeah, 100%. I'd recommend everyone goes out and gets reading into it. And then there's another good book on breathwork called The Oxygen Advantage as well. So, building up that tolerance, that CO2 tolerance, it very much goes into the depth about nasal breathing, performance breathing. It talks a little bit about and this is the funny thing, it brings up about, how a lot of people feel, after, physical exertion that they need to take deep breaths, like real sucking, proper deep breaths, but it's a complete fallacy, So there's, there's methods and there's there's breathing exercises. There's things that, that we think, we've got our head around that we're actually really not. But yeah, that is an awesome book to pick up as well. So I recommend everyone jumps on those two.
Perfect. Big fella, I'm cautious of your time, but before we wrap things up, we didn't even get a chance to talk about liqueur or anything, but they can come over to your page and find out. But where do people find out more about the meditation, liqueur, mental health, and everything in between?
Yeah, so liqueur, we're based in Caringbah South. We're reopening tomorrow, actually. So all of our services will be fully reinstated and active. So we do cryotherapy. We're a full biohacking center, man. We do cryotherapy, infrared saunas, flotation tanks, compression boots. We do intravenous therapy, skin therapy, Botox injectables. So we cross over in a lot of areas. But yeah, you can link up with me, send us a message, can direct you to it. And the meditation we do, making meditation mainstream is a key player that I'm associated with. And as I said today, we did the 24-hour breathing room, which is still going right now. But every Saturday morning, 6:30 a.m., it's a free group meditation. We run for 20 minutes by the ocean. We let the ocean be our guide. So, listen to the waves crashing, sounds of nature, anything that we can kind of bring ourselves back into the body. Just this, rise and fall of the chest. There's a few different forms and practices we can do to kind of keep us detached from thinking or our thoughts. Meditation is not about, not thinking. That's the biggest fallacy. It's about either thinking of one thing or having, one thing to do. So it might be a word like a mantra, or it might be breathing, just fall, the rise and fall of the chest, or expanding the stomach. It's really as simple as that. But yeah, that's run across many different locations across Sydney, and they're mainly set up they're all set up along the beaches. So connect with me there. We got one at Wanda restarting next week. And other than that, any other breath work, just keep following me on Instagram, you'll see it.
Yeah, jump across to Tommy's page. Big fella, thanks for that. And
Legend, mate. Thank you for having
me. Really appreciate you sharing your story as well, which, mate, is unreal, and stoked with how you've turned things around and using it in a really positive way. So well done on that.
No, I appreciate it, man, and keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome work.
Thanks, big fella. Thanks, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next Sunday for another episode.